Okay, so let's have a look at the conception. And if you have questions by now, just interrupt me and let me know your questions. Otherwise, I will go on. So, conception. How is everything designed? I'm quite sure that today you have talked quite a bit about learning management systems and how to implement e-learning in learning management system or a learning management environment. Now at HAW Hamburg, we use the Moodle system, which is probably known to all of you. And here's a screenshot from the Moodle system, and here's a screenshot from my, so to say, my learning room or my lecture room in Moodle. What do you find in Moodle? If you go to my Moodle course room, you will find, or students will find, a study guide. They will find e-learning, of course, apparently. There has to be e-learning. They will find PowerPoint slides. They will find exercise books, or I should better say exercise booklets. And there are some boards for communication. And there are some other features, and I will now explain the aspects A to F on the following slides in greater detail. So let's get started with the study guide. The first thing I did is I prepared a study guide for the new lecture, for the redesigned lecture. This study guide here, you can see a screenshot from the study guide, which is written in German due to the fact that the lecture is held in German. It's roughly 25, 28 pages, and what is described in the study guide, I describe the learning outcome in greater detail, the rationale of the course, because for students it's important to know why they should study finance. Not all students are interested in finance at all, after all, and therefore it's good to have a rationale for the course, why it is taught in the context of their degree courses. I explain the teaching concept, the concept of e-learning and blended learning, and especially I explain the inverted classroom model in greater detail to the students. There is a schedule for the 15 weeks. Of course, there is an outline that describes the course contents. And of course, there is a list of references, and there is some tips on literature and how students can further deepen the content of the course, of the lecture. Now, most important aspect for students is always, as you know, examination. Students want to know what is expected from them in the examination and how the examination is structured. And of course, there are some remarks with respect to the examination as well. So this is the study guide, and the study guide works like an overall framework for the program. And I highly advise the students that they should study the study guide. That's always what I say, study the study guide, because then you know what you have to expect from this lecture. Okay, but probably more interesting to you is the e-learning itself. Here you can see a couple of screenshots. It's hard to show the videos here via Adobe Connect. Maybe at a later point in time we will find a way that you can have a look at my e-learning videos if you are interested to do so. Here you can see a couple of screenshots, and the full course content is divided into 6 e-learning chapters, and altogether the running time of the videos of the e-learning is 13 hours. So I've produced 13 hours of content. It is partially animated content with illustrations and graphics. You can see videos on the top right-hand side corner. You can see me standing in front of the camera talking to the audience. There are, of course, chapter headings, and then there are tests, formative assessments. So if you have a look, let me use the pointer. So if you have a look here at the lower right-hand corner, you can see that there are formative assessments as well, various types of assessments. that I use at the end of each chapter. What is important is that there is a clear chapter structure. So all of my chapters start with an introductory video where I welcome the students and where I explain the agenda, the content of the chapter, as well as the learning objectives. Then the whole content is broken down into units, sections, and subsections. And what you can see, I don't know whether it's visible, I don't know whether the resolution is high enough, whether you're able to see it, but what you can see on the right-hand side is that there is some sort of a skin, like you know the skin, like you know it from YouTube. And so for students, they are able to move forward and backward within the videos. There's also a table of content embedded where they can jump from section to section, back and forth. And this is possible because these videos are Flash-based. In the newer version, I have changed them to HTML5. So I am able to embed the content into the learning management system. So it's more than a pure video, it's interactive. And therefore, I can use assessments which are embedded in the individual chapters. So you can have various types of assessments. There are single choice questions, like true false questions, for example. There are multiple choice questions, fill in the blank questions, and there are questions, mapping questions. That's what you see here on the lower right-hand corner. This is a typical mapping question. Last but not least, each chapter ends with a list of references. Should be good academic standard to end the chapter with a list of references. And of course, what is important is that there is an imprint in order to protect the intellectual property, the intellectual know-how as well. Any questions up to this point?
No, it doesn't seem so. Everyone is happy.
Okay, everything okay.
Well, maybe I have one question.
Yeah.
Can you tell us how was it produced? Because you appear in these videos, but did you also the technical side? Did you do that on your own, or was there a team?
Yes, I did it on my own, and I will explain it on the following slides. I will explain the full production process. So don't worry, it will be explained. Maybe for the moment, the tool that I have used is Adobe Captivate together with some other Adobe programs, but I will explain that in a moment in greater detail. Okay, so let's move forward to the next components. As you can see there, the backbone of, or as you may have recognized, the backbone of the e-learning is a set of PowerPoint slides. Now, what I do is I make the PowerPoint slides available to the students, and there is one PowerPoint script per chapter. Altogether, I created over 700 PowerPoint slides, which seems to be maybe much to you, but you have to keep in mind that the majority of the PowerPoint slides are highly visualized, a lot of illustrations and graphics, so maybe previously I condensed a lot of content on a few slides. Now it's spread. It's spread over multiple slides, and of course each of the scripts will correspond with the e-learning chapters. This is very important. It's also very important from the perspective of the students, because they like to work with the scripts. They like to use the scripts in order to take notes while watching the e-learning videos. It becomes easier for them to take notes while watching the e-learning videos. And of course, PowerPoint slides might be also helpful for offline preparation or for an exam preparation. Okay. For every of the 6 chapters, I have prepared exercise booklets. So this is, you see on the right-hand side, this the screenshots represent the 6 booklets. And what can you find in the booklets? So for every e-learning, I have end of chapter questions. So roughly I have for every you may remember I have 6 e-learning chapters, and roughly for every chapter I have between 120 and 150 end of chapter questions, asking questions that deal directly with the content of the chapters. I have research exercises for the students, so like web research and other research exercises where they have to go to the library and to research literature. I have mini cases, smaller cases, and of course, if we talk about finance, there are many arithmetic problems, many calculations. And at least in a couple of the chapters, I have developed extended case studies, which then go over a number of pages, and we have like extended cases, a little bit more time consuming. And this is provided to the students as well. Now, boards, if we have a look at the learning management system, within the learning management system, I use a number of boards. There are 3 boards in the learning management system I have created. First of all, there's a board for communication. That's what all of you know probably. Then I have a separate board that I use for Q&A. So students can ask questions and other students can answer the questions. And if they do not answer the questions from time to time, I will answer the questions as well. But apparently I want to create activity within the learning management system so that students communicate with each other. Besides of that, there is a third board that I have used for suggestions. Students can make suggestions. They can make suggestions for exercises. They can make even suggestions for the final examination. That is what I tested as well. And they can make suggestions for the course room and for the improvement of the course materials. One thing I have to add at this point here is if it comes to boards and communication and boards, for me it is always a little bit disappointing because students do not make use of boards in a way I would like to see them. They don't like to communicate via Moodle. They don't like to communicate within the learning management system. I don't know whether you made the same experiences, but my experience is that students use their own Facebook groups, they use WhatsApp groups for communication, and they don't want to have another channel. So to a certain degree, you have to force them to use these boards, otherwise it will not work out. But it is hard. So I would like to see more communication, but still now I'm doing this for a couple of semesters. It's really hard to increase the communication. Okay, so what else is in my course room? Some
Sorry, there was a question.
additional. Yeah, there's a question. Okay.
Maybe I can-
Can hear you.
Okay. All right. So if you say it's quite hard that they start using the boards, how do you encourage them to use those?
Yeah, there's a very simple way. It might sound tough to you, but what I did is I said to my students, I will not answer any question while being in class that have not been answered previously in the board. So you have to raise your questions in the boards, and I want to see at least a certain level of communication in the board, also from other students. Otherwise, I will not answer the question here. And this works. This really works. Some people get angry at me if I tell them, yeah, you can't do this, you know, this is cruel to the students. Yeah, but it works. Okay, so
Okay, we have a second question. Thanks for
Yeah.
answering this one. Okay, she's coming over.
Yeah.
Did you hear me?
Yes, I hear you.
Okay. Mr. Decker, you were talking about that was something that I was wondering at the beginning when I was hearing you about talking about borders or boards,
Yeah.
communication boards.
Yeah.
And now you have told us about the difficulties you have to improve the communication system you use for your students. We've been studying the way how to feedback in virtual learning, and is one of the most difficult things that we have found it in all the study we've run out. And the question is, how interactive is your communication of feedback with the students in these boards? Because maybe the interaction question is what is essential here, because when it's written, you said that your students prefer to use their own ways of learning, their own ways of communication. But when how interactive are your ways? Because if they're not very much interactive, is what they make to use another channels for communicating and for yes, for communicating. So how interactive is your way? Or how did you
Well,
do it? Just
yeah.
by questions, as you said?
Yeah. See, the point is there are legal and technical restrictions. For legal reasons, I'm not able to use Facebook or let's say WhatsApp group. And of course, there would be, if I would be online and if I would use these channels, I could respond right away to the students' questions. So there is a higher degree of interactive communication. But I'm not able to do so. I'm not able to use these channels. I wouldn't mind to do so, but for legal reasons, it's not allowed. If we talk about the course room or the learning management system, obviously students will post their questions and they will not receive an answer right away because either I'm not online or other students are not online. So it takes a while before they receive their answer. Or before they receive an answer at all. So what I do is at least every day on a frequent base, maybe 2 times per day, I check the boards of my course rooms and I see whether there is communication or not. You can do that in a very quick way, and then you can decide whether you want to answer a question or not, or whether you want to send out an email in order to encourage other course participants to join in to the discussion of the question at hand. So that's what you have to do. Still, the question is whether students will answer questions, whether they will start to answer the questions. And that's what I meant when I said, don't be disappointed. There are not many students who will do so. And if so, there will always be the same students who will answer the questions. So you'll have like a core set of students. Let's say if you have like in a semester 150 students, there might be 10 to 15 students, or roughly 10% of the students. They will frequently use the boards and they will answer questions. Is that answering your question?
Well, I think in blended learning and in e-learning, feedback is going to be the weak point. It is the weak point, and it's still been for a while. And there's another.
Okay.
Another person from here says that how did you give feedback and how did you how did you assess? How did you give feedback on the exercises?
Yeah,
It's always written feedback, or?
Yeah. Wait a second. I'm talking about blended learning. It's not a pure online course, right? So there are in-class sessions, and there is more feedback from my side within the learning environment in comparison to a classical in-class lecture, right? If you have an in-class lecture, you see maybe your students once in a week. but I meet my students every day, once in a week in the lecture room, but on all the other days, I meet them in the learning management system. So apparently there is more communication while applying this approach than in comparison to a classical approach. And besides of that, of course, there are my office hours where students can join me. So, but this is true for all lecture settings. So there is more communication. And well, maybe there is not communication at the point in time when students will study the videos, but therefore, but instead of that, there is room while being together in the classroom. Okay.
Okay, thanks. Just the last remark. Although we are talking about blended learning, and you right when you say that this is not an e-learning session or practice, but it doesn't mean that blended learning doesn't need online sessions or interactive feedback. No? Thank you.
Okay, so I move on with the presentation. Like I said, there are additional elements I add from time to time to my learning room in Moodle. First of all, this is in German, but what is meant by that is I add from time to time additional exercises and additional explanations. If I see in the boards that there is a lack of understanding, if I see in the in-class phase, during the in-class sessions, that there's a lack of understanding, I add more exercises to the learning room. And from time to time also I add additional slides and explanations, especially if there's a lack of know-how from previous lectures, or maybe the content of previous lectures already has gone away. So then I add additional slides with explanations. Besides of that, what I do is I add the results of evaluations. So I frequently have evaluations for my courses, for all of my lectures. And this is, I think, helpful in order to create transparency, and also you can have a discussion with your students about the structure and the content of the course. And this helps you to improve the course then for upcoming semesters. What else is there? I have created, although I'm not allowed to use Facebook or WhatsApp for communication, for communicating with students, I have created a Twitter feed. And especially if it comes to the world of finance, there is a lot of news going around in the internet. There are articles in newspapers, etc. And what I like to do is I like to tweet these articles, because then this is helpful in order to accommodate the course materials. And also there are then from time to time students who want to even know more about the world of finance, but apparently it's hard to satisfy them during the in-class phases. So this is why I have created this feed. What else is there? Every semester I create a reading tip for bedtime reading, fiction. And here's, for example, simple reading. And what I do is during my in-class sessions, I touch upon the financial aspects that are mentioned in these books. Here you can see a book from Michael Ritpass, which is partially, the setting is partially London and partially the United States of America, and then it's about bond trading and traders, etc. And although it's a thriller, although it's so to say fiction, I still try to deal with the contents in my classrooms. I try to link it to the more formalized contents of e-learning, and students like that, and like to share their views on the stories as well with me during the course room. It helps them to at least a little bit to motivate the students. Now, production. You already asked the question. You have already have asked the question. Production. How did I produce my e-learning, and meaning the e-learning videos as the backbone of the course.